Welcome to the Empowerment Hour, a podcast dedicated to the woman ready to take charge of her life, live in her purpose, and be unapologetically authentic. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, award-winning author, proud wife and mother, and committed empowerment specialist who is obsessed with seeing women live up to their fullest potential. As the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah and mommypreneur, my goal is to share my secrets on discovering your purpose, living intentionally, chasing your dreams, and learning to balance it all. If you're ready to make a change and start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey guys! Thank you for tuning in to another week of the Empowerment Hour. Hope you all had a great week, and I hope that you crushed some goals and have set some new ones as we begin a new week. I talk a lot about the importance of intention, visioning, manifestation, all of these things, primarily because I really believe that what we tell ourselves significantly impacts the kind of day that we have. It's so important, ladies, to get yourself mentally prepared for the type of day and week you want to have. And if you tuned in to last week's episode, then you know I talked about the importance of investing in yourself. I gave tips on different inexpensive ways to invest in yourself and your passions, and kind of bring your own market value up. If you missed last week's episode, I definitely implore you to check it out. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes if you're an Apple user, and you can simply find us by searching The Empowerment Hour. Empowerment is spelled a little differently, so I'm going to spell it out for you. It's EMPOWHERMENT. So the empowerment is spelled with the her, right in the middle of the word. Also, you can follow the show by visiting our website at www.blogtalkradio.com/empower her. So now that we've gotten the preliminaries out of the way, this week I really want us to focus on what we do with regards to creating our own success. Now, before we get into that specific topic, I need for you to be clear that success is subjective, meaning that different people define success differently, right? So what you consider successful for yourself may differ from what I consider successful for me. And that's perfectly fine, because we each have our own motivations. We each have our own dreams, our own goals, and that's perfectly fine. So for me, success may mean something, outlandish or great, because my vision for myself is huge. Whereas for someone else, success could be something as simple as just being able to carve out 30 minutes a day, to do something that they love, right? And if they're able to achieve that every single day, then for that person, they've been successful. So I really want you to think about what success means to you. How do you define success? And then once you've thought about that for a little bit, then I want you to think about the things that you do throughout your day, throughout the week, the month, or just in your life in general, and how those things either contribute or don't contribute to that idea that you have in your head about being successful. Now, for me, when I think about success, and the way I define success is accomplishing those things that I've set my mind to do. So I'm a really big proponent of visioning, of using vision boards, of affirmations, of putting things out into the universe. And if you've attended any of my workshops, or if you've worked with me one-on-one, then you know this about me. And so success for me is when I am able to accomplish the goals that I have set out for myself, when I'm able to live fully in my purpose, when I am able to bring the best out of others, when I'm able to inspire someone. So when any of these things happen for me, it's a success, because these are all things that I have created my life around, right? So they're my own goals, and within those goals, I have, many smaller goals. And so every time I accomplish one, for me, that's a success. It's a win, so I really want you to start thinking about how you define success, right? And then once you've thought about it, I want you to whip out your journal, or on a sheet of paper, or on your notes app on your phone. I want you to write the following: success means to me the following. And then I want you to write that. Or another way you can put it is, I define success when I do these things. Or any iteration of that. But I want you to get in the habit of writing down your thoughts. And because what this does is it allows you to really think in more detail about what you're doing, right? It's easy for us to kind of talk about things and to shoot off at the mouth, but a lot of times we're not really giving a lot of thought to certain things. And so this is something I really want you to think about. So I want you to think about success, and then I want you to write down what success means to you. For me, I remember a specific event where I think I was almost petrified about doing it, because I didn't know what the outcome would be. And so 3 years ago, I had this idea that I wanted to create an organization specifically for women. The goal of the organization was to bring women together through different workshops and through different events where women could share their stories. We could be a support system for one another. And then it also allowed women who otherwise would not be connected to meet and create relationships. And from that idea, I created my organization, The Fierce Woman. And now when I had this as merely a thought, at that time, I had no real idea of what I wanted to do, what kind of events I wanted to put together, or even the direction that I wanted the organization to go. But as time has gone by, and as the organization has evolved, and as I've evolved, the mission and the vision for the organization has become a lot clearer. But when I was planning that very first event, I was scared shitless, because here I was with a brand new idea, trying to come up, with an event, and I had no idea if anyone was going to show up. And so that was terrifying to me. And so I put all I had into creating the event, into getting guest speakers, into securing a venue. And the day of the event, I mean, it was beyond my wildest dreams because I ended up selling out the event. There were so many women in attendance that at one point it was standing room only. And so I remember thinking at the end of that event that night when I went home and I was looking through the photos, when I was reading some of the testimonies, and the feedback that the women who had attended had left, and how they were all thanking me for putting such an event together and how empowered and inspired they felt. And so at that moment, I really felt successful because I took an idea, I ran with it, and I followed through, and it surpassed everything that I had imagined, for that event. But I remember as I prepared for that, how scared I was, because I was afraid to fail. I was afraid that no one would show up. I was afraid that people would not believe in me. And so when we think about success, we have to remember that sometimes failure is a stepping stone to success. So while that first event for me reaffirmed what I wanted to do, it could have easily ended up a flop, right? With no one coming out, and no one supporting me, and I would have considered that a failure. But now in hindsight, when I think about it, even if no one would have showed up, now I can still see that it would have been successful because I had an idea and I had the courage to follow through on that. Okay, so that in itself, when you start to shift the way you think about successes, really is a success, right? And I think if I kind of would have looked further into it and then said, okay, if people hadn't showed up, then I would have said, well, why didn't they show up? And then maybe you start to think about how you organize the next event. Maybe, the subject matter that was being discussed or whatever the theme that the event was centered on is not something that talks to my specific audience. So that would have been something for me to look into. So all I'm saying is that success, is very different, and it just depends on the lens that you're looking at the success from. So if you have the courage to do something and follow through with that, that in itself is a success. I think of this other time when I didn't feel as successful, and it's almost along the same lines. I remember I had a book reading a few years ago in Brooklyn, and hardly no one showed up. I think I had about 5 people who came. I remember it was a gentleman and his wife, one of my old high school friends that I hadn't seen in over 15 years. She ended up showing up with her husband, and then my sister was there. Right, so that was 5 people, one of them which was one of my relatives. And I remember being in that big space with these 5 individuals, and initially I just felt horrible. And I almost began to self-doubt myself because I was like, wow, no one showed up for me, right? But that was a lie. There were 5 people who showed up for me, right? And so I took that experience, and although there was only 5 people there, I performed as if the venue was full. And so I gave the very best of me to the people who did show up. But it's that reason that I always stay humble, because I know that for every event I sell out, there was that one where there weren't that very many people. And so I know that at any given moment, that can be my reality. And so it really guides how I navigate in the world, how I interact with people. It's why I value my supporters so very much. Is why I try to really make meaningful connections with people who support me in my work, because all of that is relative. All of that really feeds in to the dreams and the desires and the things that I'm passionate about. And all of that contributes to my success. And, I think that really it's important to understand that part of the reason some people never experience any kind of success is because they're afraid. Part of that is that they're afraid to try. Another part is because they're afraid to fail. And some are even afraid to succeed. Because when you succeed, you then put yourself in a position to lose it all. Right? And no one wants to lose it all. No one wants to start from the bottom and work their way up again. Because we feel once we've achieved a level of success, that success is given. But it's not, right? They say that success is rented, and every single day you have to pay the rent, meaning that every single day you have to put in the work, right? Because then if you don't, you can lose it all. And so you have to be careful that you don't become too comfortable once you reach that level of success. And so I think that as we start talking about creating our own success, we have to understand that part of creating your own success is highly dependent on how you step into or away from fear. How do you push yourself past that fear to get you going, to get you moving, to get you doing things, right? Because if you can't get past the fear, you're never going to taste success. So I want you to think about that for yourself. And I want you to think about things that maybe you have always wanted to do and have not done. And then ask yourself, why haven't you done them? Right? And if you identify that part of the reason that you haven't done that thing that you want to do is related or is rooted in fear, I want you to examine that. I want you to look at the fear. I want you to identify what exactly it is that you're afraid of. Once you can identify it, then you can begin to tackle that thing. You can begin to chip away at the fear. And then little by little, you build the confidence to go after that thing that you want. I'm really active on social media. I'm always on the internet. So right now, what I see is that we are living in a time where everyone is out here hustling. Okay, at least that's what it looks like to me when I'm looking at my Instagram feeds, at my Facebook feeds, when I'm talking to people, when I'm curating my events. You can see that, from small independent jewelry companies to motivational speakers, to writers, to fashion stylists, makeup and beauty artists. Women and men are out here trying to get this money, right? I haven't seen ambition like this in a really long time, and I think that people just really want more nowadays, right? I think that gone are the days of simply being satisfied with a regular 9 to 5. Like, everyone I know has like a side hustle, right? And and why not? There's so much money out there to be made. Why shouldn't we try to get our hands in some of that? And there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. Absolutely nothing. I have a day job because at the end of the day, there's mortgages and there's rent that needs to be paid. There's kids that have to be clothed and fed. There are responsibilities that we have that unfortunately until we get to a certain level of success with our side hustles, we have to maintain those 9 to 5 jobs so that we can eat and so that we can feed our families. So, don't get discouraged or don't feel less than because you have a day job and then you have your side hustle. That's the smart way to do things, right? Because I see a lot of these artists who want to go all in for their passion, right? But then every other day they're crowdfunding, right? They're crowdfunding to pay their rent. They're crowdfunding because they want to travel. They're crowdfunding to go to school. I mean, come on. At some point, we have to take responsibilities for our own life, right? And that's where that 9 to 5 comes in. Because while most of us may not want to work that 9 to 5, while most of us may want to devote our entire day to our passion and to fulfilling our dreams, the reality is that that side hustle is not paying our bills yet. So don't get it twisted. If you have a regular job, be proud of that job. There's nothing wrong with working, an honest job, making honest money, and paying your bills. Okay, so I just want you to realize that while you may know people who are probably going all in for their dreams and for the things that they're passionate about, that does not negate where you are on your journey, right? And so sometimes when we have these 9 to 5 jobs and when we don't have, 24 hours in a day to devote to the things that we love and we're most passionate about, we then have to make sacrifices in other areas, right? So while we may not be able to sacrifice the steady paycheck that comes from a 9 to 5, that may mean that you may have to sacrifice your evenings, your weekends, those nights out with your friends. Sometimes it means sacrificing sleep, right? But the point is that if you want to reach a certain level of success with your side hustle to the point that it's generating enough income for you to live off of, then you're going to have to find the time to work at that after hours, right? So while your days are focused and allotted on, making that paycheck, the time when you're not at work then has to be focused on building your business or working towards those other things where you want to be successful in. One of my business mentors has always been Diddy. This is a man who literally worked himself, to where he is right now. He has this saying, and he was onto something when he said, can't stop, won't stop, right? And what that means is that he's not going to stop. He's always working. And look at how successful he turned out, right? You have to put in the work. He went from a no-name college party promoter to one of the most successful music moguls and entrepreneurs in recent history. And how did he do that? He is a master at branding, okay, at marketing. He figured out his own lane. He created his own lane. And when I think about hip hop in the 90s, Diddy perfected the idea of sampling, okay? And sampling wasn't new when he did it, but he flipped that shit and he took old R&B classics, converted them into hip hop, and everyone that was signed under Bad Boy during that time blew up. Okay? And Diddy will always be synonymous with that type of hip hop. Always. He was the one, that kind of put it on the map. And it wasn't anything new, but he figured out, a new, fresh way to build on something old. Okay, and so what he did was what set him apart from everyone that was making music when he came up. Okay, he revolutionized the use of sampling and turning those old classics into popular modern day hits. I mean, if you think, you can pick almost any bad boy joint from the 90s, and 9 times out of 10, that joint was sampled from some song from the 70s and 80s. Okay, so these weren't new songs. They were just old songs with a new twist. And so he used his love of music and what he grew up listening to, and he says this a lot. If you watch any of his videos, any of his interviews, okay, this was music that his mother was listening to. And so by way of growing up in that household, he too was listening to these songs, and he used that to make himself one of the most sought after producers in the 90s. So although he wasn't the only producer or the only man making music back then, he did so in a way that sampling in the 90s became synonymous with Diddy and the Bad Boy label. So when you're trying to create your own lane or to create your own success, you have to find your own niche. Okay, you have to figure out what qualities you possess that set you apart from everyone else, right? Because I don't subscribe to that notion of competition. I just really don't. Because even if there are 5 different people that are doing what I'm doing, no one can do it the way that I do it. That's why it's so important that with whatever you do, you have to be true to who you are. Remaining authentic and true to yourself is what's going to propel you to that level of success. Because believe it or not, you have something that no one else has, but other people need. So you have to figure out what that is, and then you have to build upon that. The greatest key to your success is to discover what makes you different and then pimp the shit out of it. Okay? You can be a talented makeup artist, but guess what? There are tons of talented makeup artists. So you have to figure out what makes you different. What special touch do you bring to the artistry that is going to make someone choose you over the next makeup artist? So this is what you have to figure out and then build your brand around. And then maybe your thing is your backstory, right? Maybe there's something that happened to you in your past that led to your love of makeup. I don't know. I'm just talking here. But, you have to share your story, right? Because people love stories. It makes you real and it gives people something to connect to. Okay, so by you sharing your story, there could be dozens of other women who may have gone through the very same thing. And by you sharing that story, that's what's going to set you apart from that next makeup artist. That's what's going to make someone remember you. You have to give people something to connect to. All right. Maybe you're an expert on contouring or eyebrow shaping, but whatever it is, use that. Use that to help you set yourself apart from everyone else. They say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery when it comes. They say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but when it comes to branding yourself, different is always better. Don't copy what someone else is doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for inspiration. You can definitely be inspired, but don't copy, because then you come off just looking like a copycat, right? And then why would someone choose you who's copying when they can kind of go over to the person who's being authentic, right? So again, when creating your brand, you want to be authentic. When you think about the biggest brands out there, when you think about Reebok, when you think about Nike and Adidas, these are all sneaker companies, but they each are their own brands, and we're drawn to them because they're all different and they all offer different options and looks. When you copy someone else's style, you're always going to be in their shadow. And ladies, you were not meant to live in the shadows, okay? None of us are. We're all meant to shine, to stand out, to be different. So we have to learn to love those things about ourselves that make us different, and then just focus on that and shed the light on that thing. You know, for me as a writer and an empowerment speaker, there are so many other women who are doing what I'm doing. I see it all the time. I see it on Instagram. I see it on Facebook. There are so many people doing what I'm doing. But because I am aware of that, I work extra hard to ensure that I stay true to my voice and my personality. Okay, there's many of us sharing the same message, but my delivery is my own. Okay, I'm not, like the next Alex L or Corey L or Chanel Cooper Sykes, or all of these women who are kind of in the same field. They're writing books, they're doing workshops, they're all doing the same thing, but we're all different and we all have our own audience. So I make sure that I remain authentic to who I am. And what it boils down to is that people know when you're bullshitting and when you're not real. So you have to be very aware of how you're coming off and the messages that you're putting out there. You have to be consistent in your message, right? You can't say one thing one week, say something else the next week. You can't flip-flop. You have to be true to who you are. You have to stand in your truth. All right. And the last thing that I really want to share is you have to find what you genuinely love to do and then create your brand around that. And ladies, I cannot stress this enough. Okay? You have to find what it is that you love, that you're passionate about. Because you can jump on somebody else's bandwagon. You can see the next person doing something and getting all of the accolades and getting all of the fame and all of the love, and think that if you did the same thing, you're going to have the same type of success. But that's very dangerous when you do that. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're doing something simply because someone else is doing it, you're not going to last too long doing that thing. Because you don't love it, because you're not passionate about it, and because there's nothing that's going to tie you to that when you encounter obstacles or when things get hard. Okay, so if one week you want to be a blogger, the next week you want to be a writer, the week after that you want to be an empowerment speaker, the week after that you see your homegirl is opening her own nail shop, now you want to be a nail shop owner, it's never going to work. You can't flip-flop from different things because you see different people succeeding at that. The reason they're succeeding in their respective fields is because they're doing what they love. And when you do what you love, you sacrifice for it. Okay? And when you're doing what you love, it doesn't feel like work. So you don't mind, spending 18, 20 hours a day if you have it working on that thing that you love. And that's what every person who is working in their field and doing what they love, they're going to tell you that their work doesn't feel like work because they love it. So until you genuinely can find what you love and then figure out a way to profit from that and to create your own success, you're never going to experience the same level of success as someone else. Okay, when you're doing what you love, you won't care that you're sacrificing time. You won't care that you're sacrificing sleep. You won't care that you're sacrificing time with your friends or anything else. You're going to work twice as hard because you do love it. And you also have to let your brand represent exactly who you are as a person and where you want your life to go. Take inventory of your social media feeds. Read the posts that you've made within the last few months or even the past year. How are you evolving? Are you still posting those silly memes or reposting, those ridiculous world star hip hop videos? Are you growing? Are you uplifting others? Are you inspiring? Your social media pages should reflect who you are as a person and what your brand represents. That is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. They're posting everything that makes no sense. That is totally disconnected from who they say they are or from what they're doing. You can't call yourself a female empowerment speaker if you're constantly posting things, berating or criticizing other women. No one's going to believe you. Okay, part of manifesting your own lane is self-growth. And something that's been very important to me from the beginning of my journey is remaining true to who I am, which is why my word for 2017 is authentic. So everything that I do, it centers around that. So before I accept any offers, to be a speaker somewhere or to do workshops or be a facilitator, I have to make sure that whatever work I'm doing is aligned with who I am at my core. And so I use that word, or I'm using that word throughout this year to guide me in every decision that I make related to my work and my brand. I don't tell a story that isn't something I don't actually believe in. And I don't post things on my social media just to post. And when I go back and I look at my news feeds, I realize that my feed and life have transitioned with me. And so as I grow and become more interested in different things, you see it evolve in the things that I'm sharing about myself. It's my story. And so I allow my story to be integrated with my brand because they are very connected. And this is what I want you all to start thinking about as you endeavor on your own creative journeys, as you create your own paths to success. I want you to be very aware and cognizant of how you're living your life and the messages that you're putting out into the world. Because what you put out there, the universe is going to send back to you. So I want to leave you with that thought. Be very aware of what you're doing. This concludes this episode of the Empowerment Hour. I want to thank you for rocking with me another week. I appreciate you. I love you guys. You keep me inspired to do what I do. So please share this on your social media networks. Let people know what I'm doing here. And please, I would love your feedback. If you love the show, leave a review. Until next time, mi gente, be good, stay inspired, put in that work.